What's up, people? It's Jerry. So, I've been thinking a lot about India's global reputation, like what do people think when they think of India? It's not a simple question, so my team and I went deep. We looked at everything from Pew Research to viral TikToks to what your uncle in Mississauga is hearing at the local temple. We've compiled what we're calling a global perception score. Now let's be crystal clear about this. This isn't a factual rating. It's not like we're giving India a Yelp review. This is about, it's a vibe check on a global scale. These scores are a mashup of a ton of different sources. International media coverage, public opinion polls, what's trending on social media, the massive influence of the Indian diaspora, and global surveys. We're talking about the whole shebang. The good, the bad, the Bollywood, the bureaucracy, all of it. This is the story the world is telling itself about India. And it's crucial to remember this key point. These scores reflect how India and Indians are perceived, not who they really are. Perception isn't reality, but it can feel like it, and it has real-world consequences. So, let's get into it. This isn't about pointing fingers or saying India's good or India's bad. It's about understanding the narrative. When a tech company in Silicon Valley is hiring, what's the default assumption about an Indian engineer? When a family in the UK is choosing a restaurant, what comes to mind with Indian food? When a news headline about a scam breaks, what image pops into people's heads? These perceptions are built over decades, through millions of individual interactions, news reports, and cultural exports. Today we're going to break down that complex image piece by piece, and see what the data tells us. Let's pull back the curtain. Alright, first up, technology and innovation. This is India's heavyweight champion. When you think of the top tech companies in the world, who's running the show? Sundar Pichai at Google, Satya Nadella at Microsoft, Shantanu Narayan at Adobe. It's like the Avengers, but for enterprise software. The perception here is overwhelmingly positive. The world sees India as a factory for brilliant tech minds. It's the land of coders, the back end of the internet, the place you go when you actually need the work done. It's a brand that's been built over decades, from the Y2K boom to the current AI revolution. The phrase Indian programmer has become synonymous with skill, efficiency, and a deep technical know-how. This isn't just about the CEOs either. It's about the massive IT export industry that powers businesses globally. It's the legions of skilled developers on platforms like Upwork and TopTal. The perception is that if you have a complex software problem, an Indian team can solve it, probably for a competitive price. This reputation is so strong that it creates a halo effect over the entire country. It's India's global calling card, the first thing many people in the business world think of. It's a narrative of competence, intelligence, and being absolutely essential to the modern digital economy. It's a powerful story, and it's one that India has mastered telling. This tech prowess doesn't just appear out of thin air, it's built on the foundation of Chapter 2, STEM education and talent. The global reputation of India's education system, especially the IITs and other top engineering colleges, is legendary. Getting into an IIT is famously harder than getting into Harvard. That stat gets thrown around so much it's basically a global meme. The perception is that Indian students are grinders. They are relentlessly focused, mathematically gifted, and possess a work ethic that's second to none. They're seen as the top draft picks for PhD programs in science and engineering at universities across the US, Canada, and Europe. But, and there's always a but, this stellar reputation sometimes gets tangled in red tape. While the students themselves are highly regarded, there can be a headache. There are whispers and sometimes outright complaints in academic and immigration circles about visa issues, complex documentation, and the occasional struggle with credential verification. It's like you've got a Ferrari of a student, but they're stuck in bureaucratic traffic. The talent is undeniable, but the system surrounding it can sometimes create friction, slightly muddying an otherwise pristine image of academic excellence. Let's move from code to stethoscopes. Chapter 3, Healthcare. Here, the perception is one of deep respect, especially for Indian-trained doctors, nurses, and pharmacists. Go to any small town in America, the UK, or even parts of Africa, and who is often the backbone of the local clinic or hospital, an Indian doctor. They have a reputation for being incredibly knowledgeable, dedicated, and willing to serve in communities that are often overlooked. This isn't just an anecdote, it's a global phenomenon. The NHS in the UK would practically grind to a halt without its Indian staff. It's a testament to the rigor of Indian medical education. This perception of competence creates a massive well of goodwill. When your health is on the line, you want someone you can trust, and for millions of people around the world, that person is a medical professional from India. They are seen as the cavalry, the reliable hands you can count on. This image is further boosted by India's role as the pharmacy of the world, churning out affordable generic medicines. This isn't just about individual doctors, it's a systemic reputation for producing life-saving talent and products. It's a powerful narrative of care, compassion, and high-level skill that resonates deeply across the globe. Now for the fun stuff. Culture and soft power, this is where India really shines. You can't go to a major city on earth without finding a decent chicken tikka masala. Indian cuisine has fully conquered the global palate. It's not just ethnic food anymore, it's mainstream. Then you have yoga. What was once an ancient spiritual practice is now a multi-billion-dollar global industry, taught in studios from Toronto to Tokyo. It's the ultimate cultural export, representing wellness, mindfulness, and a touch of exotic spirituality that the West just can't get enough of. It's India's gift of Zen to a stressed-out world. And of course, you can't talk about Indian culture without talking about the spectacle, the drama, the dance numbers of Bollywood. Movies like RRR didn't just win an Oscar, they won the hearts of audiences who had never seen an Indian film before. The Natu Natu dance became a global viral sensation. This soft power is immense. It paints a picture of India that is vibrant, colorful, and full of life. The flip side? This can sometimes lead to stereotyping. The idea that all Indians are either doing yoga, eating curry, or breaking into a synchronized dance number. It's a positive image for the most part, but it can also be a little one-dimensional. From the silver screen to the balance sheet. Entrepreneurship and startups. This is another area where the perception is overwhelmingly positive. The Indian entrepreneur is seen as a force of nature, whether it's a motel owner in Middle America who builds a family empire from scratch, a tech founder in Bangalore creating the next unicorn, or a venture capitalist on Sand Hill Road. The narrative is one of relentless hustle, sharp business acumen, and an incredible drive to succeed. They are seen as risk-takers, innovators, and job creators. The stories of Indian immigrants arriving with a few dollars and building massive businesses are modern-day legends. This isn't just a diaspora story anymore either. The world is looking at India itself as the next great startup ecosystem. With a massive domestic market, a young population, and a flood of venture capital, India is seen as a hotbed of innovation. The perception is that this is where the next big thing will come from. From fintech to edtech to health tech, Indian startups are making global headlines. The image is one of dynamism, ambition, and a country that's open for business. The Indian entrepreneur is no longer just a supporting character in the global economy. They are increasingly seen as the protagonist. Okay, let's talk geopolitics, diplomatic relations. This is a mixed bag. On one hand, you have the relationship with the United States and the United Kingdom, which is perceived as very strong. India is a key member of the Quad Alliance, seen as a crucial democratic counterweight to China in the Indo-Pacific. The photo ops between leaders are all smiles and handshakes. There's a narrative of shared values, strategic partnership, and deep economic ties. In the halls of power in Washington and London, India is seen as a vital, if sometimes complex, ally. The world's largest democracy tagline carries a lot of weight and generates a lot of goodwill. But then, you look north to Canada, and the perception gets frosty, real fast. The diplomatic situation there is, to put it mildly, a dumpster fire. The accusations and expulsions of diplomats have created a narrative of conflict, mistrust, and strained relations. It's a story that has dominated headlines and soured public opinion, especially within the large Indo-Canadian community. So you have this split-screen perception. With some Western powers, India is the trusted partner. With others, it's the difficult adversary. It shows how quickly diplomatic goodwill can evaporate, and how a single major conflict can tarnish a country's image in a specific region. This leads us right into Chapter 7, Immigration and Integration. Again, a deeply divided perception here. On one side, you have the view of the Indian immigrant as the model minority. They are seen as incredibly hardworking, family-oriented, and highly educated. They come, they work, they start businesses, their kids top the spelling bees, and they contribute immensely to their new home countries. This is the narrative you hear from economists and see in stories about successful Indian diaspora communities. They are perceived as a net positive, enriching the economy and culture. But there's a darker, competing narrative that gets a lot of play, especially in online forums and tabloid media. This is the perception of immigration rules being bent or broken. There are widespread stories and concerns about PR or permanent residency and marriage misuse, where unions are seen as transactions for a visa rather than genuine relationships. There are also high-profile cases of immigration fraud and document forgery. This creates a perception of a community that is gaming the system. So while one part of the world sees industrious builders, another part sees cunning rule breakers, creating a deeply polarized view of the Indian immigrant. Let's zoom in on a specific group of immigrants, students. Chapter 8, Student Reputation Abroad. For every brilliant scholar heading to MIT or Oxford, there's a story that undermines that image. The perception of Indian students is once again split right down the middle. The dominant image is still that of the bright, studious, and ambitious young person, the one we talked about in the STEM chapter. University professors often love them for their dedication and sharp minds. They are seen as the future leaders in their fields, a massive brain gain for the host countries. However, this positive image is constantly under attack. The scandal involving hundreds of Indian students facing deportation from Canada for using fake college acceptance letters was a massive blow. It created a global narrative of systemic fraud. This is compounded by anecdotal but widespread complaints about etiquette, students living in crowded conditions, being loud, or not understanding local customs. These stories go viral on platforms like TikTok and Reddit, painting a picture of students who are not just here to study, but to exploit the system and disrupt communities. It creates a damaging stereotype that hurts the vast majority of honest, hardworking students. All these issues, the immigration fraud, the student scandals, they feed into a larger, more corrosive problem. Chapter 9, Law-abiding behavior and general trust. This is where the perception really starts to take a nosedive. The trust has been damaged. High-profile cases of fraud, especially those that manipulate legal and financial systems in Western countries, have created a powerful and damaging narrative. We're talking about everything from sophisticated mortgage fraud rings to complex corporate schemes. When these cases are linked back to individuals or groups from the Indian community, it creates a stereotype of dishonesty. This perception isn't fair to the millions of law-abiding Indians, of course, but fairness has nothing to do with it. Perception is a blunt instrument. A few bad actors can tarnish the reputation of an entire community. The feeling, especially in online discourse, is that there's a willingness to exploit loopholes and bend rules to the breaking point. This creates a general sense of suspicion. It means a landlord might be warier of an Indian tenant, or a bank might scrutinize a loan application more closely. It's a quiet, insidious erosion of trust that has real-world consequences for everyday people. Let's bring it down from corporate fraud to the checkout line. Retail and public behavior etiquette. Yeah, this one is fueled almost entirely by social media. There is a pervasive stereotype online of Indian individuals, both tourists and new immigrants, being rude, aggressive, or pushy in public spaces. Think of the viral videos of people arguing with retail staff, haggling aggressively in inappropriate settings, or talking loudly on their phones in a quiet library. These clips are algorithmically engineered to get maximum engagement, and they spread like wildfire. They create a powerful, visceral, and negative image. This stereotype is incredibly potent because it's visual and relatable to anyone who's ever had a bad customer service experience. It taps into pre-existing cultural anxieties. Of course, rude people exist in every culture, but when dozens of viral videos specifically feature Indian individuals, it cements a stereotype. It creates the perception of a cultural clash, a group of people who don't know how to act in their new environment. It's a low-stakes issue compared to diplomatic crises, but its impact on day-to-day perception and social harmony is massive. It's death by 1,000 TikToks. Now let's look at the perception of dealing with India on an official level. If there is one stereotype that has stood the test of time, it's this one. The image of Indian bureaucracy is a nightmare labyrinth of red tape, endless forms, and indifferent officials. It's the perception that nothing gets done without a connection or a bribe. This isn't just an internal Indian problem. It's an image that is projected globally. Businesses looking to invest in India are often warned about the bureaucratic hurdles and the pervasive backsheesh culture. This stereotype is reinforced by global corruption indexes, news reports about bribery scandals, and the personal anecdotes of anyone who has ever tried to get a government document in India. The perception is that the system is inefficient at best and corrupt at worst. It creates a massive barrier to trust for international investors, tourists, and even diaspora Indians trying to handle affairs back home. It paints a picture of a country that, despite its modern tech sector, is still bogged down by archaic and frustratingly slow government services. It's a major drag on India's overall brand. And finally, we arrive at the big one. The final boss of negative perceptions. This has done more damage to India's reputation for trustworthiness than perhaps any other single issue. The high-profile, large-scale telefraud operations, traced back to Indian call centers, have become a global punchline and a source of genuine fear. The Microsoft tech support scam, the tax agency scam, the romance scam, these narratives are deeply embedded in the Western consciousness. They are the subject of documentaries, news exposés, and countless warnings from police departments. This has created a catastrophic trust issue. For a significant number of people in North America and Europe, an unsolicited call from an Indian accent is now an immediate red flag. It's a conditioned response. This perception has devastating consequences. It casts a shadow over legitimate Indian call centers and BPO businesses. It creates prejudice against anyone with an Indian accent in a customer service role. It reinforces the worst stereotypes of dishonesty and criminality, undoing so much of the goodwill built up by the tech titans and the life-saving doctors. It's a brand killer. So, after running through the titans of tech, the diplomatic dramas, the cultural wins, and the catastrophic scams, where do we land? We crunched the numbers, weighing the good, the bad, and the viral. The final average global perception score for India lands at approximately 62%. That's a C-. Kidding. It's actually a moderately positive score. It's not an A+, but it's comfortably passing. It signifies that for all the negative headlines and damaging stereotypes, the positive contributions in tech, healthcare, and culture still hold significant weight and create a powerful foundation of goodwill for the country on the world stage. This score tells a story of a reputation that is strong in many of the right places. The world respects Indian intellect, talent, and cultural richness, but that respect is fragile. The negative perceptions surrounding scams, bureaucracy, and public etiquette act like a corrosive acid, constantly eating away at the positive image. It shows a brand that is powerful, but also deeply vulnerable. It highlights a fundamental tension between the perception of a modern, innovative 21st century power and an older, more chaotic and sometimes untrustworthy image that refuses to die. Ultimately, what does this all mean? It means that India's global image is moderately strong but vulnerable to being undermined by bad actors, viral content, and isolated abuse cases. The battle for perception is fought every single day, in every business deal, every diplomatic meeting, every tourist interaction, and every viral video. The 62% isn't a fixed grade, it's a dynamic score in a world that's always watching. The real story is that the narrative is still being written, and it's up to India and its people to decide which chapters get the most attention. Thanks for watching.